Our last speaker this morning is Dr. Menon. Dr. Menon is Vice President of IBM's Technical Strategy and Vice Chairman of the IBM Academy of Technology, responsible for shaping IBM's technical strategy and identifying emergent technologies critical to the future of IBM. He's also IBM's Vice President of Global University Programs, leading IBM's efforts to work with academia to establish innovative research programs and to build 21st century skills needed for the innovation economy. Please, Dr. Menon, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lucas, Ms. Gosselin, and Ms. Roka Hackham. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm really delighted to be here. Can you hear me fine? Great. You know, it's always dangerous to be the last speaker before lunch because I have to do one of two things. I have to be really entertaining or I have to be really short. So I don't know which I'm going to be, but I got to be one of those two. You know, I'm not a language expert. I'm not a linguistics person at all. I'm just sitting here and trying to think about language diversity and what it means to me personally before I get into IBM for a second here. And it struck me, you know, I speak English, of course, and I speak 3 Indian languages, which I won't get into. But the thing that struck me about language diversity was I actually speak a 5th language, which I don't think most people recognize as a different language. And I'm thinking of Indian English. You know, when I get on the phone to friends in India, I mean, my kids immediately roll their eyes, you know, because my language changes, the words change, the accent changes. You know, I'm a different person. You wouldn't recognize me now from that person. And now my kids think I'm being a fake, which is interesting, but they don't understand the fine nuances of language diversity and what it means to relate to people, you know, in a particular way. So anyway, that's my contribution to to thinking about language diversity as I was sitting here on the panel. If we go to the next chart, I want to introduce my company to you. I think many of you know we're in the IT business. We make hardware, we make software, we do services in IT. But I want to, you know, highlight a few other things on this chart for you. First, that we're very large, 400,000 people, a lot of people, and we operate in actually 174 countries around the world. So you can imagine the kind of language issues that we have to deal with as we go forward. Couple of things you'll see on this chart, no matter how you look at it, whether you look at it by revenue, whether you look at it by population of the employees, you know, less than half of the population is in the Americas. And in fact, we're nicely divided between the Americas, EMEA, you know, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. So we're very balanced across the globe. And a lot of people might think we're a U.S. company, but, you know, look at the numbers and you'll see that, in fact, we're across the world and nicely distributed. I'd also like to point out that just in the last few years, increasing regions of the world are where most of our revenue growth is. So you look at, these are 2006 numbers, Brazil, Russia, India, China is where majority big growth is happening. But just if I look at 2007, and I don't have it on this chart, there are about 50 countries where we're getting more than 20% growth compared to, you know, in the more developed parts of the world where the growth is much smaller. So we're clearly, you know, going out and reaching out to different parts of the world is very crucial to us, and that's what I'll talk about a little bit here as we go forward. I want to say that if you go to the next chart, what you'll see is that these are the kinds of things that we think about as we operate as a company. These are the big overarching realities of our time. First, you know, the rising tide of globalization, and briefly, I want to say, you know, IBM thinks of ourselves as a globally integrated enterprise. We used to call ourselves a multinational corporation. We don't say that anymore. And here's the difference. You know, when you think about a multinational corporation, you operate in 100 countries, but, you know, in every country you have a mini IBM, if you will. So you have a mini IBM in France. So you have IBM France, you have IBM Germany, IBM Japan, IBM, et cetera, which means that you replicate yourself everywhere. So you have a HR department, you have a CIO's office, you have backroom operations, you have a purchasing department, you know, and that's replicated 50 times or 100 times. We have become a globally integrated enterprise, and by that I mean that that we take these functions, take purchasing. We used to have 100 purchasing officers in every country. Now we have one purchasing officer, and it's centralized in China. We take HR. We don't have 100 HR. We used to have 100 HR departments. Now we have one, and it's centralized. That happens to be in Raleigh, North Carolina. Or we have services and service delivery of IT. That's centralized too, and a majority of that happens to be in India. So what globalization does is, any one country with the right skills, expertise, environment can actually serve the globe, and that's sort of what we're really saying. We used to serve it 100 different ways locally. Now we have one organization, and it could be anywhere in the world depending on expertise or talent. Our customers are increasingly asking us for innovation, and what we mean by innovation is, in fact, to win in a globalized world, you have to innovate. You have to be that part of the world that can service and create that capability or that function for the rest of the world. And you'll see when we innovate, we no longer think about innovation inside our company. We don't think that all great ideas come from IBM. No matter there's 400,000 people in IBM, you'll see time and time and time again that we have realized that innovation has to be done in an open way, in a collaborative way, with many other institutions, with governments, with universities, et cetera. And you'll see that theme in what we do. The last reality of our time is the growth of the services economy. It used to be that the world was an agricultural world, a manufacturing world, but now there's more people doing services jobs than there are people in agriculture, than there are people in manufacturing. And this is a message in my role going around to universities around the world. It's an important message that I have to keep driving home because we are still teaching courses as if we were living in a manufacturing world. The examples we use in our classes, et cetera, are still very motivated by manufacturing. And in fact, the world has changed, and this is a message we try to give. So my own, if you go to the next chart, my own focus and mission, of course, is around this university mission, training people around the world, growing skills in all these regions around the world is a very, very, very important part of what we do. And you'll see that I won't go into the details on this chart. We work with 500 universities worldwide. We have a fair amount of funding from IBM to create these skills, to create the talent around the world. And you can see the $17 million is what we spend annually in these kind of efforts around the world. So we care a lot about skills, and we care about it all around the world, and I'll talk more about that as we go forward. This is just a chart. If you go to the next chart, this chart basically repeats what I just said, that there are, in fact, more people in services, and it doesn't matter whether you look at the developed countries or other emerging parts of the world. This story rings true, that there are more people in services. Is an important message that we give to universities. If you go to the next chart, another important message we give to universities is this message, which is that universities produce I-shaped people. They're deep, they're very knowledgeable in one area, they grew out of one area of expertise. I was an I-shaped person when I joined IBM, but in fact what we're now asking universities is, please produce T-shaped people. We're not asking for great depth in many, many areas, but the ability to know other parts, to know just not your technology, know something about business, know something about people and culture. This is hugely important. IBM spends $800 million a year in training our own people, and I think a lot of that is taking I-shaped people and making them T-shaped people. Now, if universities would do more of that, we'd probably spend, less money at IBM. So, let me talk a little bit about languages, communication. We have to communicate with our customers, obviously. We have customers all around the world, our own employees all around the world, our business partners, suppliers, governments, university partners. And so translation is needed for many, many things. We make products. The products need to be translated. We have websites. We have marketing material. We have strategy documents, newsletters, communicating to our own people, university courses, instant messaging that people do around the world to each other. All this stuff needs to get translated, ultimately even voice. I mean, we're talking on the phone. What about translating that? So You know, there's a statistic I got from us that, in fact, we translate 400 million words every year. And someone told me, now we're not keeping statistics anymore, and somebody will prove me wrong because I'm not an expert, but I was told that that actually is higher than any other organization in the world, and it might well be true, or it at least was until a few years ago. So there's a lot of translation we have to do within, and you can see for all the reasons that I mentioned on this chart,